Hello again, and welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and we're going to continue a little bit into our mini series. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, sit back, relax, don't worry. You don't have to watch these videos in any particular order to enjoy them. And at the end of this, somewhere over here, I'll probably throw up a little bit of cards. So that way you can click on it and see all the videos we've done thus far, or maybe in its entirety, depending on when you're watching this. Now, I've been getting a lot of really great feedback about this one in particular called It Takes a Village, because in my humble opinion, uh, when you have an SHTF situation, especially a long-term SHTF, then you're going to have different jobs that need to be done. And so in this mini series, we are covering those job titles, what those roles are, and the responsibility for them. So this one, we're going to continue that on, and we're going to talk about one called basic labor. So and this one, this is one of the categories where I believe it's going to be taken for granted a lot. But real quick, let's take a pause and let's define what this group is. So basically, we're going to say that this is a person, people, group, whatever, that performs basic physical labor in some sort of form or fashion, right? So there's always going to be a need for more hands on deck, whatever the reason is, whether it's a short term SHTF, maybe it's a couple hours, a weekend, a month, whatever. And, physical labor is always going to be there. Now, think of this group as helpers for the most part. So while the builder is building, the basic laborer can do things like bring supplies, move tools around, help clean up afterwards, things like that. That is the thing to where maybe you're doing some cross training or something. Uh, you know, here is what I want you to do. And then when you're done with that, sweep up, take this stuff out, things like that. So your basic labor is basically kind of your grunt work, so to speak. Now, when we're going on something like this, would be a good idea, at least, to have basically everybody in your mag who is at very least able-bodied to participate in this group. It's a good idea that depending on how big of a group you have, you should probably have a leader assigned to this as well. So that way, it's not just a bunch of people deciding what they want to do and how they're going to get it done and how quickly it needs done. If you have somebody who's kind of leading up the basic labor group, then they can delegate the tasks, tell them, hey, this isn't as important. Take your time. Hey, we need to get this done quickly. We've got to move. So, but it's not just that. So, it's also, say you have one doctor, then maybe you can have somebody in the, grunt labor help in on like low risk tasks. Now, that's not to confuse that, the labor group is this mindless, disposable person. Okay, not by any means. There is a ton of people that they don't have a real niche or a real high skill in an area. uh, you know if you have a doctor, then more than likely they have a doctor experience for years. If you have a builder, usually they're experienced in that for years. So if you have somebody that they've done some odd jobs, maybe they're young or whatnot, maybe you have a single mother who never had to have a job. She was a stay-at-home mom. uh, you know it's not to say that this group is just those people that have no skills. It's they just don't have a high set in one particular skill, so they can still help out and they can still learn. They can still pass on knowledge, they can still cross train, they can still learn and develop into one of the tasks or things like that. So one of the things I also want to kind of get into this a little bit too is that things need to get done, and there's certain tasks that have a different danger level associated with it. So if you're going to have a leader of this sort of group, then they also need to have the understanding that there's a different level of physical effort needed and they have to be able to delegate each of those jobs to the correct people. Now, ideally, you can take and use this as an opportunity again to shadow and train others. If somebody wants to be a builder, then let them shadow so they can slowly pick up the skills, and they can help the builder. It'll take some of that stress off to where you're not just relying on one person. And also, if we're talking about a super long SHTF, you're generationally passing that skill along. So you need to also prepare for that. There's a lot of people that they plan for 6 months or they plan for a year. They go, if an SHTF situation is going to go on for more than a year, then there's no point. Nobody's going to survive it anyway. As much as we should prepare for the short term, we should prepare for medium, long term, really long term, and we should prepare that nothing happens. You should prepare for as much as you can. So, if you kind of look at it, there is a chance of a 5 year SHTF, a 10 year, even a 20 year. So, if the balloon goes up and throws us all back to the Stone Age for insert event here, right? Then passing those skills on is going to be vital for rebuilding civilization. Now, this is a good time to do an assessment and kind of take inventory of your group. You should evaluate your each member of your mag and see what their physical strength is. Okay, and at the same time, it'd be a good idea to know what their weaknesses is. So, to kind of throw an example in on something like that is going to be, let's say we have Bob. Bob's a young 25-year-old in good physical condition. He's healthy. He's got a strong young back. And you suddenly, just now during the SHTF situation, find out that Bob's got a big fear of heights. Okay. Now, not knowing something like that now can create a major problem in the future. So get to know your people, get to know strengths, get to know weaknesses, because you do not need to have something just surprise you when all catastrophe happens, right? So let's dial it back. Let's go through a couple of final thoughts on this one. So manual labor is basically the driving force behind everything in society. Okay, so depending on what SHTF is going to look like, power tools and other helping devices may not be available, meaning that we're going to be forced to go old fashioned. Just that elbow grease that our forefathers had to use to build what we have today. So it'd be a good idea to have somebody kind of watch over, again, kind of be a leader of this group. They can serve as a watchful eye in the name of things like safety, making sure people are getting the work done, providing some level of PPE, making sure that somebody fully understands the tasks that need done, and be able to make sure the correct person is doing that task. Now, while some of these tasks that'll fall into this category, uh, they might be jobs that honestly nobody wants, okay? But they're important jobs nonetheless. And so you have to have somebody that you can delegate things to that'll get those jobs done, like digging a hole for a latrine or carrying water, cleaning up after a storm. These things are vital, important jobs that everybody's going to rely on. We all need a hole in the ground or whatever to go to the bathroom in, and if everybody just wants to cross their arms and go, I'm not doing that, well, good luck. These are problems that you've got to say or solve now. These are conversations that you need to have now. These are things that you need to think about on, are you going to make poor Bob be the latrine digger? Okay. Is it fair? Is it something, because there's a ton of those jobs, especially in SHTF, that you're just not going to want to do. And to make the same person do it over and over and over, the mental preparedness and having a low morale is something that's going to be a constant battle. And so you need to make sure that you're delegating appropriately, you're being fair to everybody. Hey, look, Bob's dug the last 3, 4, 5 latrines. It's time for somebody else to kick in and dig one or two. He needs a break from something like that. So it's going to be one of those ones that, when you start getting into this, any sort of low morale, frustration, things like that, they start leading to complacency, poor safety, even disease. So it's stuff, again, that we need to think about now. It's things that, it's uncomfortable as it is. When you start talking about, well, nobody's going to dig a latrine, well, then everybody's just going to start going wherever they want, and then disease enters your compound or whatever, and now everybody's going to be in serious trouble, right? So uh, as you kind of go through and you think about the manual labor of it, you also need to take into account of the safety factor. You don't need to do something that's got a little higher end risk of getting hurt and having your doctor hurt his hands or something along those lines, right? Not saying that the doctor is more important than somebody else, but a doctor that can't use his hands is probably not a very good doctor at that point in time. So, make sure that you think things through, delegate things. Don't rush into too much to where you give too much to a child or to an elderly person. Make sure that the task that you are setting out for them to do, they can physically do. Okay, and it should be with relative ease. If the person seems like they're struggling, it might be a good idea to send another helper over. Maybe it's a task for two people. There's going to be a lot of give and take, and especially do not overwork your general laborers. You don't want a guy that's out there in the heat, uh, digging holes for 10 hours in the sun, when in 2 or 3 hours he's got to go pull an 8-hour shift on nighttime security. It's not a good recipe for success. Okay. So again, just stuff to think about. I don't want to sit here and tell you exactly this is the way that you've got to do. I want to get the ball rolling. I want you to start thinking about this stuff now. As you start forming your mag, if you're already in a mag, start looking at stuff like this. If you're getting ready to join a mag, could manual labor be, your high end? Maybe you're a jack of all trades, master of none. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe you're that person that's going to lead the labor group. So that's all I've got for you on this one. I hope that you pulled something of value out of this one. uh, Keep on staying tuned, because there's a few more videos that we're going to talk about, and we'll see how all that goes. So far, again, we seem to have a pretty good success out of this little mini series. So I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you have a blessed day. If you made it to this far in the video, guess what? You rock. I appreciate you for spending a little bit of your time with me. Stay tuned, because there's definitely more information to come. With that, I want to remind you to remain united, because we're all prepping in this together.